What's up, geeks and gamers? My name is Draymond, and welcome to Thorium Gaming. So this is going to be a little bit of a different Wednesday one-off. Unfortunately, this week, Chaplin Grimuldis couldn't be with me, and it's sad, but we're going to be bringing up him in a little bit here. So I got a couple of things to talk about, a little bit of a channel update, and we're going to be playing some Stellaris in the background. For those of you who don't know, this is the bane of my existence. I love this game so much. I have played hundreds of hours of it, and I have yet to win a game. It tortures me. So much does it torture me. But I love it. It's a great grand strategy game and tons of fun. I'm playing as one of the default races in this, which is the United Nations of Earth. We are in the solar system, and I think it put us approximately in the right place. Galactically speaking, anyway. So we'll just set this up real quick, and then I'll go on to what we're going to be talking about this week. So we'll set up a physics lab, and we'll get a bio lab, and an engineering facility. That'll work out. Sent our science ship off to survey in a little bit. So the big things for this week, while everything starts going off. Chaplin Grimuldis has been named as officially our community manager, and he's been doing a heck of a lot of work behind the scenes. He's been helping me out immensely, and it's well beyond the time that he got recognized for all that he does. Aside from coming onto the videos and shooting the Wednesday one-off, sitting there helping me set up the recordings of the week, pointing out ways that I can suck less, talking to all of you guys, and just generally being an awesome friend to hang around. He's been doing a lot of work with our Facebook stuff, a lot of work helping set up our Twitter accounts, sharing all the videos, helping get the brand out there. And so it's about time that we recognized him. And officially he is our community manager. And I'm grateful to have him as both a friend and a fellow gamer, as well as part of this entire effort and process. So Chaplin, when you watch this, you are awesome, and thank you for all you do, because you're a great guy. So what we're going to get into this week for the topic is I was recently reading a bunch of game sites and informers and all that sort of stuff. They have announced a new MechWarrior game, MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. It's going to be up to 4 players, co-op, in a single-player campaign. That's not going to be a linear story. You're going to be able to play in the Inner Sphere however you want. It's been 15 years since we had a true MechWarrior game. The ones that came out for the Xbox, published by Microsoft, they were good, but they weren't classical MechWarrior. And there's been a couple of other games in the BattleTech series that have been great, but they weren't a MechWarrior game. I love the BattleTech franchise. I love the IP. It is so fleshed out, so great. I really, really hope this game is good. I mean, I can still remember, and for those BattleTech fans out there, don't laugh at me and don't judge me, running around in my Timberwolf, having a grand old time. Swapped out the extended range lasers in the arms for a couple extra portable particle cannons. Big blue balls of death. It was awesome. I had so much fun doing it. And we're finally getting another one. It's set to release sometime in 2018. There's a demo out there right now. The AI is a little bit lacking from what I've read. I think that's going to be solved. They've already said that they're going to be working on it fairly heavily. But in addition to this, we're also getting a BattleTech game. It's going to be a turn-based strategy game, similar in the same sort of vein as the XCOM franchise, which in turn was kind of a spin-off of the BattleTech franchise, where you take control of a lance, which is a small squad of mech warriors, and you control them in a turn-based situation. Again, the IP is fantastic. I can't get over how much I love the IP in general. So the fact that we're getting not one, but 2 new games, an original BattleTech and a brand new MechWarrior game, 2018 is going to rock when these games come out, if they're done right. And I am praying to the gamer gods to let them be done right, because they're awesome. And if you have not had a chance to get into the BattleTech franchise at all, there are a lot of the older games that have gone open source, For a while there, the Mech Commander series was up as open source and free. I think you can still find it out there. It's just a little hard to find. I spent more money than I should have on a copy of Mech Commander 2 Gold, and I have played that game to death. I've probably invested close to 2,000 hours, probably more than that, in the entire BattleTech IP, and I've not regretted a single minute of it. It is just fantastic. So if you haven't tried it yet, I highly, highly suggest you go out there, try one of the BattleTech series, avoid MechWarrior Online. It is not really BattleTech, so to speak. It's your typical pay-to-win free-style multiplayer game. You'll get some of the feel of the MechWarriors and the mechs themselves, but it doesn't really fit in with the full franchise. All credit to them. It's a decent enough game for what it is. They just strayed a little bit too far from the IP. Completed. So anyway, we're getting a couple of new great games. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. After this holiday season, we get more BattleTech. Dre's happy. Very, very happy. And yeah, I'm rambling a little bit. My brain doesn't work right, and you guys know that by now. But regardless, if you haven't tried Stellaris too, there was a sale last week. It goes on sale every now and then. There's a bunch of DLC for it that is really worth the time. This is also a fun game. It's a lot of time commitment, though. And be warned, the game does not hold your hand. It tortures you, in a sense. Like I said, I've got about 250 hours logged on Steam alone, and I have yet to win a game. I've yet to even come close. That could just be because I suck, but it could also just be that the game is incredibly complex, and it is very, very complex. Each one of these little dots is a star system, and there's a lot of interaction that you can do while you're playing it. Again, I'm not one to shy away from a challenge. In fact, I find it endearing.
Construction completed.
But it can be a little overwhelming at first, so you're going to take some time to learn how to play through it, and it's not necessarily for everyone. But if you like grand strategy games, Stellaris will fill the void in your grand strategy life fairly significantly. You'll start a game at noon, and when 3 a.m. rolls around, you'll realize that you've been playing for over 12 hours, which kind of happened to me when I first started playing it. It's a little weird. There's also a ton of new stuff coming out from Blizzard and from the Lord of the Rings franchise. There's a Lord of the Rings card game apparently coming out. That I don't have a whole lot of information on. It was just something interesting that came up. And it brings me to kind of a logical point. Why is everything getting card games lately? Okay, with things like The Witcher, I can understand it, because Guild? That's not the right word. It starts with a G, but it's a card game within the game. Kind of like Blitzball was with Final Fantasy X, or the Chocobo races in FF7. It was part of the grand experience, and it got its own spin-off card game. Fine, fair enough. And of course you've got your Magic the Gathering games where they try to translate the card game into the digital world. You have, like, all of the FF games do it. They always have one of those big mini-games. You've got Hearthstone, which brings all the Blizzard IPs over to the card game. I just don't understand what the obsession with bringing everything to a card game is. It could just be me, and if you guys play these games or really, really enjoy them, I'd love to hear your opinions on them. So just hit up the comments down below, of course. I don't understand it. It's just something that escapes me. So there is that. And Blizzard has been up in, quote, the news, end quote, about the last boss of their current expansion, Legion, being stupidly hard, which you don't really associate with World of Warcraft anymore. Again, it might be my snobby elitism, or just me being a dork. Bosses were harder back in the good old days. If you young kids don't know about it, we had to fight goblins uphill, both ways, in the snow. Yes, we'll go with that. But it used to be that the bosses were meant to be stupidly hard and give you a ton of challenge. And it kind of dropped off there for a while. They took away the threat mechanic in, I think it was just post-Cataclysm, where they made the threat mechanic less important. Made it so that it was a lot more streamlined, and the looking for raid system, while good in its idea, I think was a little poorly executed. But it just comes down to the general whole, they want everybody to be able to experience the content, but at the same time they're trying to make it so that there is a challenge and a leaderboard system worldwide for who can kill these bosses first, or what order, how quickly they can do it, how many times they can repeat killing said bosses. So, from my point of view, it's nice to see a boss coming out that's getting universally flamed for being extremely difficult. I remember when Nax 40, again, not to put myself way back in the day, came out, and a lot of guilds couldn't even take down Patchwork, the very first boss in that instance. It took a lot of trial, error, and a whole bunch of rogues dropping off every single health buff they had to avoid the hateful strikes. Because that's what ended up happening, is our rogues and basically any melee class aside from the tanks needed to drop their hit points down, because it went in a stacking order of who had the most hit points. So your tanks had to constantly be topped off, and you know there was a lot of micro strategy to it that is less apparent nowadays. I'm not saying that they're bad in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying it was different back then. The game was meant to be a challenge coming out of the EverQuest era and Neochrome era, I guess. Those were really the big competitors at the time, EverQuest especially. So World of Warcraft needed to differentiate itself that way. Now that another boss has come up that is ridiculously hard, it's kind of throwing a spanner in the works with people who were kind of expecting it to be very similar to how the expansions have rolled out thus far. Just gonna pause my thought here, collect my thoughts. Well, I guess we need to wait for a little bit more mineral before we can build another hydroponics farm. Food, as it caps out, will actually make your populations grow faster on your planets. Helps you colonize other worlds and everything a lot quicker. With that aside, all of these little icons, of course, mean something different. Energy is both power and money, if you think about it. Minerals, being minerals, you use it to build things. And then this is engineering research. And you have physics and sociology as well. And each one of them is attributed to one of these 3 different trees. And they give you a whole bunch of different things. And there's ascension paths in the game. I believe engineering is the cybernetics path, biology, and the social sciences, which is kind of mixed together, leads you to an evolutionary path, and then there is a psionics ascension path later on. And so by doing one of the minor events in Alpha Centauri, which is this way, we finished off a little event, and it gave us 60 society research, which is going to take a lot of time off of that. So essentially 1 day equals a second. You can speed it up or slow it down depending on how fast you want to play the game. I tend to go a little bit slower because, let's face it, I'm not very good. So more reaction time is better for me. But anyway, so with a lot of these bosses now, and I noticed this trend kind of happening in Guild Wars. Don't get me wrong, I like Guild Wars. It's a very solid, strong game, and I do like the way the world bosses pop up, and anyone can join in on the fight. But at times it just seems like a straight rush, and it's way too chaotic. I'm used to more of the, you had to plan out, buff up before a boss, work as a team sort of thing. It's kind of like a bunch of small little groups all melded together. But with how World of Warcraft is gone, and I used to play World of Warcraft every day for too many hours a day, aside from work and university way back when, the bosses required you to dedicate a portion of your life to being a raider, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the camaraderie. And in fact, I'm still friends with most of the other raiders in that guild to this day, because we all spend so much time in each other's company. And it kind of worked out. It was the best of both worlds. On the one hand, you had a bunch of people just coming together to play a video game, and on the other, you had the social environment where everybody was working as part of a team.
Construction completed.
So there is that. And lately, all these bosses have been stepping away from that kind of formula, and don't get me wrong, maybe it's the right way to go. I don't know for sure. I just kind of commiserate and remember the older style where everything had to be done as part of a team. I can't say which is better or which is worse, if they're even better or worse. So let's just build a engineering post around
We
Neptune.
have detected an anomaly.
Sure, if you less evolved gamers are already laughing how there's power in Uranus. Yeah, okay, I kind of hate myself for that one. I kind of really hate myself for that one. But one of the cool things about Stellaris, and I'll just pause it real quick here, is there's a full-on ship designer. These are humanoid-style ships, and we have missiles as our first weapon type. And we're using warp drives. So there's a bunch of different weapons, FTL methods, and different ways of propulsion inside the game. As you keep going up, you'll unlock more items to throw into these slots. So for these low slots, you'll get things like shields, you'll get things like fighter craft, armor, of course, generators and reactors. We only have access to the fission reactor right off the start of the game, but you can completely customize each one of these ships for your own particular roles. When you get up to larger ships, they will have multiple sections up top, which in turn gives you multiple subsections as well. And you can set up your ships to be whatever you need them to be. So if you want a long-range ship, I would suggest taking missiles off the start. They are the longest range. However, you are going to suffer from point defense systems. They'll shoot down all of your missiles, or at least a large portion of your missiles, before they can get to their target. And we have just capped out on Unity for the first time. Now, if we go into the Traditions menu, we're given this big, ungainly list. Each one of these trees represents part of your evolution as a species. Supremacy will be all about warfare, diplomacy should be self-explanatory, discovery is all about research, expansion, colonizing other worlds, domination is all about subjugating other empires to you, prosperity is reducing the costs of your inter-empire stuff like shipbuilding and structure building costs, and harmony is all about your people. Each one of these that you complete, the full tree, I should say, unlocks an ascension perk. And these ascension perks will slowly allow you to get really cool things. Off the bat, you get access to things like interstellar dominion and technological ascendancy. I can talk real good. It increases your border range or your research time, but later on you can get into these bigger ones, like engineered evolution. It requires you to have at least one other ascension perk, so you have to complete one of these trees and then a second one of these trees before you can get access to this. But it gives you more gene modified points, reduces the cost of modifying your people, and it gives you access to the gene seed purification research. It does require gene tailoring technology to begin with, and it requires an empty ascension perk slot, obviously. But that leads into evolutionary mastery. And again, it ups your ability to modify your people however you want, and eventually you can make these super beings that just straight up dominate whatever planet you want to put them on. And there's a bunch of different paths you can take. So that's the genetics path. Synthetic evolution is actually transferring your consciousness into machines, and transcendence is all about psionics. The rest of them are things like Master Builders and Voidborn, which give you access to superstructures in space. Things like the Dyson Sphere, these massive space science stations, and you can even build ring worlds where it takes all of the planets within a system and turns it into Halo. It makes a Halo ring, minus the activate altogether and wipe out the galaxy part of things. Essentially, you get 4 25 level planets, which are massive planets that have perfect habitability that you can build on, and they're awesome. They take an incredibly long time to build when you go for the Voidborn stuff, though. It takes a lot of mineral and an awful lot of time. But since we're playing as the United Nations of Earth, I think we're going to go with diplomacy. We haven't run into any other species yet, but we will not too long from now, so we'll go with diplomacy, try and make friends out in the cosmos, be the good guys. Sorta. Kinda. And we are playing a democratic authority, so every 10 years we will have an election to elect a leader. We will have certain parties show up. There are factions within our empire, and the more we support them, the more we can shift our governing ethics. Right now we are fanatic egalitarians and xenophiles, meaning we like other races a lot. And we are all about equal rights across the board. There are a ton of other ethics that you can choose from. Militarists who are all about, the military, their hierarchy. You have spiritualists who are all about gods and all that sort of stuff. You have xenophobes, opposite of xenophile, obviously. And you have bright materialists, fanatic authoritarians, tons of different ethics. You can build a race to suit whatever you want in this. You could be despotic slavers, or you could be honor-bound warriors. Think Klingons, sort of, kinda. There's actually a race in the default game without any of the DLCs, though the DLCs are worth picking up. The humanoid race pack for the ships alone, and I do have that pack, which is why my ships look like this, and are really, really beautiful. I love this pack, just for the ships. But it also gives you different voiceovers for Veer, your virtual interactive something? I don't know, it's the voice that you hear, it's your UI voice, essentially. I don't know why I can't think today. I don't know. But it's worth all the DLC and everything, but you can set up a race however you want. You could make anything that you can imagine, and you can play it out. The best part about this game, or the worst part is, there's no dedicated tech tree. Yes, certain techs do feed off each other, but every time you research one of these technologies, you will get a random list of 3 available technologies to research, and go on from there. You'll never have the same playthrough twice. I've played games where I've started off, and I've had some of the best technologies available for me. I've also had games where I tend to go for the synthetic evolution part, because I think uploading my brain to a computer would be awesome. Don't judge me. And I got nothing but biological traits for the good ones, and all my engineering traits were like missiles. In my own personal games, I play lasers, so that doesn't really work that much. So there's a lot of random chance in it, and all that sort of stuff. But the other thing, too, is if you are creating your own races for this, and you are wanting to enjoy it, I'm just going to speed the game up a little bit, you can create races, specifically to fight against. So if you wanted to go in and create an entire own cosmological mythos for yourself, you can straight up do that. I've created machine intelligences and spiritualists to be exactly my opposite. And all the races, you can set them to default spawn within your universe. They will always spawn. Sometimes even you will find the other races mixed in as lesser races. There are worlds that you'll come across that will have primitive civilizations on them. Some of them will be sentient, and you can build an observation post above their world and subsequently enlighten them and bring them up as a protectorate and then a vassal. The diplomacy system is very complex, but if we get to that as we go along, I will endeavor to show you guys, because it's a lot of fun. Actually speed it up to its fastest. The other forms are pre-sentient civilizations. They have the potential, it's like Cro-Magnon man and that sort of stuff before humanity started to think for itself, and you can subtly influence them and basically design them as a secondary race to come up alongside you. Alright, so with the technology we just researched engineering facilities, so we can build a basic science lab and then upgrade it to an engineering facility. It'll give us extra engineering research. These are the random technologies that we got from this. So I think we're gonna go, see, this is part of the robotic path. Your improved spaceport, as you keep going up with your spaceports, you get bigger and bigger ships. First destroyers, then cruisers, then battleships. Not a whole lot of variation in the base game. There are a lot of mods that have come out that expand that a fair bit. But the ones that are in the game already, you can design however you want to fit any role. I think because we're having a tough time getting minerals, we're going to go powered exoskeletons. It'll take 36 months for that to finish out.
Survey concluded.
And now we have a biological one. So this leads along the biological path. This, at first, it's just genome mapping. Gives you a little bit of growth speed, so your population tiles grow a little bit faster. But eventually you can start altering them, so you could take humans and make them conditioned to live on a different type of world. So you see that there are green planets next to these. These are continental worlds, Earth-like worlds. But in this same system, there is also a savanna world. Far hotter, far drier. Ooh, and it's a really good savanna world too. It's got 2 sets of Thorium stone. I'll get to what those are in a minute. But anyway, right now, our habitability for this is not very high. It is only 30%. You have to be at 40% before you can colonize a world. And the people who colonize there, if it's at 40%, are not happy with you, because you're making them live on a planet that they do not like. So with the genome path, the biology path, you can alter them so that they actually prefer savanna worlds. Takes a while, takes some resources involved in it, but you can make it so that humans naturally thrive on this planet. As to what the Thorium stone is, it's this mineral that burns incredibly hot, according to the background lore in the game. Once you research Thorium power plants, you can set up power plants on top of these. So each one of these tiles has a different resource that it produces. This one produces 1 energy credit, this one 2, this one 4, but it's blocked by dangerous wildlife. You'll learn how to clear those later through the social tree. But when you build a power plant on it, it automatically increases it. So for instance on Earth, if we went here, we could build a hydroponics farm that would give 2 additional food to the tile. I think we're actually going to do that. So when that's done building, it'll make this tile worth 3 food. But Alpha Centauri 2, if you build a Thorium power plant there, it gives it plus 10 energy credits instead of plus 2. Thorium stone is incredibly useful, especially if you're going with the robotic evolution path. So, worthwhile to keep in mind. But we'll go back to letting the game play. The easiest way to do this is to build a colony ship. We cannot afford one right now. They are 500 mineral to start off with. Takes a while, and we're only making 16 minerals per month. So every time this ticks over in the top right corner, we gain 16 mineral. Obviously, every time we built one of the extra stations around things like these asteroids, we get additional resources per month. Start of the game, it's kind of a careful balancing act between energy and minerals.
Completed.
Once you can do that, you can get up to massive amounts of income, kind of slow going. But our food is maxed out right now. Because it's maxed out, our population is growing at a rate of 21% faster, because we're gaining more food than our people actually need. so that helps out a lot. We're going to hurt our stockpile of resources to finish building the last mineral set up there. And we have another research done. So we just got physics labs. So we could make ourselves have an administrative AI for all of our research and increase its speed overall. Gravitic sensors are an upgrade for both our ships and our planets. And then the energy... I can talk. The energy grid allows you to use a planetary edict, which I can cover in just a sec, and it unlocks a building called the energy grid. It produces a few energy credits on its own, but it boosts every other energy producing thing on a planet. So if you combine that with the Thorium power plants, you get a ton of energy credits. And that's where I think we're going to go for this one. And each one of our scientists, of course, is good at researching something different. Miss Jawarha is good at researching voidcraft. Miss McBain is just good in general. She researches 5% faster. And Miss Klein is good at researching materials. I'd make some joke about Calvin Klein, but honestly I don't know the fashion or anything else industries well enough to make the joke work more than my bad jokes. Anyway, so planetary edicts. You can actually go into your worlds, and there's this edict list right on the right here. And for a little bit of influence, which you gain per month based on certain things, you can, say, make it a lot more attractive for migration, meaning the populations on your other worlds will move to it more. Or you can make it so that it likes your government a little bit better, builds buildings faster with less cost. Those are just planetary edicts, but if you go into your policies and edicts, which is under the More tab, you can do, not universe, but faction-wide bonuses for influence per month. Again, careful balancing game, one that I'm actually pretty terrible at. It's a lot of fun though. And I just enjoyed the designing the starships part of everything. Because I'm a geek like that. And it reminds me that we're getting a new MechWarrior game. Okay, I'm a little too excited about that. And now we have a situation log event. This is the Habitable World survey. You usually get this early on in your playthrough. I suggest you always take it, because you want your ship going out and scanning planets anyway. So after it completes 8 habitable worlds, they don't have to be worlds that you are necessarily good for inhabiting, but just habitable worlds in general, you'll get a bunch of research out of it.
Situation log has been updated.
And in your situation log, it'll keep track of everything that you have to do. Of course, your victory conditions are domination, conquest, or federation. You can actually make friends with everyone in the galaxy and win that way. Assuming one of the, quote, endgame crises doesn't get you first. They can be brutal. That's usually how I lose a game. I get to the endgame crisis, it beats me like a redheaded stepchild, and makes me look really, really bad. Worse than usual, even. So we're actually going to take dynamic ecomorphism, plus 10% habitability for everything. So now if we wanted to, this planet's no longer red to us. We could go in and colonize it. The people wouldn't be very happy, but we can do it. One of the other cool little things too is you have entire access to the music player while you're playing.
System survey concluded.
Personally, I like the Synthetic Dawn main theme. Nice mellow, but it picks up later on. It's really nice. And of course, with all of the mods that come out, the full conversion mods like Star Trek New Horizons, it's specifically a mod I would recommend because it is a lot of fun. You can play as the Federation from the days just after the flight of... was it the Phoenix? Was that from Cochrane? Anyway, after the first warp flight, you get to basically take on the role of the early United Earth. And through that, you get to play through a bunch of the events. The mod authors did an incredible job. And the look of the ships is just beautiful. They added in a ton of customization options for every one of the ships. You get to see things that are iconic, like the Galaxy class, the Ambassador class, all that sort of stuff. It has look and feel. Everything's in the right place. They did the founding of the Federation. They bring in every single one of the shows and let it play through. And of course the Borg are evil and tend to stomp face if you don't deal with them. Because there is that. It's a lot of fun though. And that's just Star Trek New Horizons, and there's a content edition for it. And there are also UIs for the most played races like the Federation and the Borg. Mod authors did an incredible job. It's updated all the way to the human mod pack. So pretty much everything in there is worthwhile. And it works all the way up with all of the content. So it's definitely worth looking into if you buy Stellaris and want something a little bit different. There are Star Wars mods. I've seen a couple of Mass Effect mods out there. The modding community for this is pretty robust. And I really can't say that enough. Chaplin Grimuldis and I have tried to play a couple of games of multiplayer. We both either got distracted once or twice. We haven't made it to an endgame crisis yet, but Chaplin and I will make it eventually. We will conquer the galaxy. My elven-looking people and his fun guy. Because he's a fun guy. Okay, yeah, that pun hurt even me. Anyway.
Survey concluded.
If you are sitting down to invest time in Stellaris, though, plan to book off a little bit more of your day than you would for any other sit-down-to-play game, because it takes a long time. I mean, we're playing at the fastest speed right now, and if I had to gauge how much into the game we are, I would say that we are maybe 0.01% into the game. Playing on a large galaxy, 4 spiral arms, a couple of fallen empires, 10 stock computer races, but that doesn't mean there's just 10 out there. That means there are a minimum of 10 because some of the natives can come to enlightenment, and some of the pre-sentients can come and be full-fledged members too, which can increase them. And the Fallen Empires, of course, are ancient civilizations that have, for the longest time, watched the galaxy. And each one of them is one of the arbitrators of a specific ethic. In retrospect, I probably should have gone through and created a race to sit down and play. But that's part of what is fun about it, is just sitting down and making the races. So you'll notice that it does take some influence to colonize a planet. So you never want your influence to go into the negatives. But once you've colonized the planet, you don't lose influence for it. I'm going to actually build a couple of Mahon-class corvettes to add to our fleet. And of course, you do have your leaders. Each one of your scientists, including the one that's on our science ship right now, is required to do something. So I believe these three are the ones that are researching all of our technologies, and Miss Sonia there is the one leading our science ship. Your science ships can't do any surveying without a scientist, and if you leave one of your technology wings vacant of a scientist, you get a massive penalty to the research you bring in. But they're not the only types of leaders out there. You do have governors, and they can govern sectors that you create later on. I'm probably going to sit down and do a full Let's Play of this eventually, because I love this game. I really, really do. That'd be fun to throw some neat things in there. But the governors can govern individual planets or sectors. Your admirals obviously lead your fleets, and your generals lead your ground forces. You can create armies by clicking on the Armies tab. Assault armies are meant for offense, defensive armies are meant for defense. And water is wet and fire is hot. But you can assign a general to them, and it improves their skills, and depending on what talents the individual has, they'll have things that are like maniacal, but specifically set for an admiral or a general. And your governors will gain governor-specific traits later on.
Research concluded.
When I said this is an incredibly complex game, I wasn't joking. Okay, so here's two options that give us additional parts as well as something awesome. So if we go with fusion power, our energy storage capacity, which is our energy credits, which is currently maxed out at 7,500, will get increased by 1,000 to 8,500. And we'll unlock fusion reactors, which are parts for our ship. We have fission reactors right now. They're the little green ones that you saw on our Corvettes when I went into that screen. These are the bigger brothers to them, and then there's two more after them. Each one, of course, takes considerably more time to do. Now, if it's a specific field, such as field manipulation for shields, and our scientist has that trait, it'll research a lot faster. I think we're going to go with deflectors for right now. We're not hurting on power, we're not getting near to our max out. We're losing a lot because we sent colony ship off and they have a whole bunch of upkeep. But, I'm saying but a lot today. So we don't need the extra credit top out right now. We're not using enough power on our ships to worry about getting the next level of generator. We'll grab shields because then it makes our ships harder to kill. And the total military power of a fleet is based off of both their offensive and defensive capabilities as well as their evasion. Corvettes are really evasive, hard to hit ships. The bigger the ship, the less it evades, but the more damage it can take because it has larger slots, so you can put better armor, better weapons, better shields on it. So one of the events we have just triggered is our first human colony off-world. We've colonized another planet in the Alpha Centauri system. Fitting, it's the closest one to us as far as I'm aware. And because it's the first colony that we have ever established, we're gaining 60 engineering resource. All of the little pop-ups have a little bit of story and a little bit of detail, and the game auto-pauses, just like that, when you go into it to allow you to read. And when you mouse over the buttons for your selections, it'll show you what you get. You do have to make some choices, and if you're playing on Iron Man mode, which is the only way to earn achievements in this game, some of those choices can have drastic consequences for you overall. I'm not going to spoil what they are, but some of them can end up working really badly for you. Alright, so we have an election coming up. Because we are a direct democracy, we have a bunch of different people who can be voted into office. And as you can see the percentages here, I don't know why I was zooming out, show you approximately how well they're going to do in the election. All of these scientists are commanding either a ship or leading our research, so we're actually going to cheat a little bit and spend some of our influence to support our current ruler, to bump her up to 39%, but you know what? Let's guarantee her the win. We'll support her twice, give her half the votes. Dolores is going to win the election more than likely, and then 10 years, depending on whether or not we get a faction showing up, we might be swapping to a new leader or something else. And the cool thing too, you just noticed, I just right-clicked and sent our construction ship to build all mining stations in a particular system. Oh. So, Sonia Ostrowski, previously a scientist on the UNS Asimov, became the ruler. So even though we supported our current ruler twice, seems like a waste of influence now, our leader got voted out of office. So now this science ship can't do anything. So we'll have to go in and recruit a new leader. We can pick Takeru Fujita, who is eager, so he's cheaper to hire. We need influence to hire them, of course. We have Mr. Sorokin, who is resilient, so he will live 25 years longer. Or we have Mr. Graham, who is good at researching voidcraft. I think we're going to go with our good Russian buddy here. And then by clicking on him, because we went through this, he'll be assigned to the Asimov. The unfortunate part is we do not have automated exploration yet. But you can research that later on, which makes your science ships basically a fire and forget sort of weapon. Why did I say weapon? Science. Maybe I'm thinking too much of Oppenheimer. But the humans names list do things like the Asimov, the Oppenheimer, the Einstein. So it kind of fits. But you will get technology later on to allow your science vessels to automate their exploration of the stars. And there's in fact a little neat trick too. If we click on our Unity, inside the discovery tree, it will take some time to build up the Unity you're going to need for this, and there are buildings that will help with that. But if you go with the discovery tree, which reduces your anomaly fail risk and increases your chance to discover them, then you go down to boldly go, and then to planetary survey core. If you combine planetary survey core and automated exploration, build about 3 science vessels and send them all off automated, they will give you a bunch of research. So you get 1/10 of your monthly gain when you survey a planet. Not a system, but a planet. So you don't have to survey all of, say, Alpha Centauri. You just have to survey Alpha Centauri 3, and you'll get that bonus. It's 1/10 of your total physics produced. So we are producing 1.02, so that would be 0.12. 0.11, 0.10, somewhere in there. I can math good. But as you keep going up, since each technology increases pretty much exponentially over the time, for how long it takes, as your science vessels go out and keep exploring the stars, also don't accept star chart deals from anyone else and let your science ships do all the work, you'll gain research every time they hit a planet. And that will curry back and make your technologies go in faster. And if you get the Ascension perk for 10% faster technology research, it all combines together to make you a Bunsen burner's dream? I don't know. I have no idea where I was going with that. But it seemed like a good idea at the time. So that's what we're going to go with. Bunsen burner's dream. It's one of the useful combinations. And of course, if you're a military race, supremacy. And if you're a spiritualist, harmony and prosperity don't really hurt you that bad. And you can collapse or expand each one of these lists, or even collapse the entire outliner. With a simple button press or just clicking up here. Show your planets, including the progress towards colonization.
System survey concluded.
Just a bunch of quick lists. And when you set your rally points, it's just this little button here. It took me forever to figure this out. Our first fleet is our rally point. So any new ship that we build will automatically join up with this fleet. When I wanted to create my a secondary fleet that wasn't assigned to the main fleet you start the game with, it took me forever to figure out how to remove this rally point. You just gotta click that button. So that gave us a new expansion thing. And as you can see, the blue is expanding out. We can only build structures or star bases inside of this radius, with the exception of a couple, but they're unique. One's a frontier outpost, which you build to create this zone, and the further away from your core it is. Ooh, the Bleeding Corsairs. They are a criminal organization that is coming to hurt our people. I think we're going to go with space torpedoes. Who doesn't like space torpedoes? And we will go into our ship designer. We just got better missiles. Fusion missiles. So while the graphics on the ship won't change, they are a bit of an upgrade. If we hide the obsolete, so our new fusion missiles do 9 to 14 damage in a small slot compared to 8 to 12. So a little bit top, a little bit bottom. They ignore 15% of armor and 15% of shields. Lasers are good against armor. Projectile weapons are good against shields. So it all works. And we have overladen this ship with power. So if we add another fission generator, we are now back under our limit. And we can drop off one of the other ones. The reason why this works and this didn't is these are medium slots. So medium generator will give you 20 power, and a small one will give you only 10. So this one is equal to actually both of those little guys. And then eventually when you put shields in, they cost power. And we'll just overwrite that. So the next time we click upgrade, our ships will go in and upgrade to fusion missiles. And we've just got our first faction. So factions, they take on a specific type, and in this case is progressivist. Depending on how happy you keep them, they will start giving you influence per month. So we just jumped up a whole bunch of influence, almost doubled, almost tripled actually. But they have certain things that they want. It's their issues. They are anti-autocratic, so a nominally elected government, free movement, reproductive freedoms, and anti-caste system. All this can be set in your policies and edicts section. And of course, it does tie back into your governing ethics, and like I said, this game is incredibly tough to learn. But I will do a full Let's Play of it at some point. Now we're just waiting on those red Corsairs. So we have a hostile fleet that is weaker than our fleet currently, so we're going to send our ships over to engage them. When you come out of warp, it does take you a small second, and these little pirate ships are going in.
Our station is under assault.
We're going to wait until it gets into combat. Well, first we're going to do that. And then once it gets into combat, I will drop the speed back down, and we can watch everything. Alright, so our ships are firing off their nuclear missiles, because we haven't upgraded them to fusion yet. And the first rebels you run into in the game, happens pretty early on for every faction, use the same technology as you, so warp drives and missiles. And you can see the health of individual ships if you click on either this button or on your fleet that's involved. And we lost one ship in the fight so far. They've lost two, and they are down to their last one that is getting pelted by missiles. And victory is ours. So what we're going to do is pause real quick. We're going to click Repair Fleet, and they will automatically go back to the nearest friendly spaceport and do that. This is a timed project. We only have so long. It's actually a fairly long amount of time. 1,798 days, so normal speed 1,798 seconds. I'm curious. What's the math on that? Calculator! So basically you have a half an hour to research that. But we're going to send our science ship back anyway because it gives us access to technologies and gives us a small boost to all of the things that we're doing. And we'll send them back to do other things. Our scientist isn't skilled enough to actually do that research project yet, so we can ignore it. Now I'm holding shift when I'm queuing up these orders just to queue them up. Saves a little bit of time, a little bit of effort. It's a lot of fun. So our first fleet is going to go back and heal itself up as soon as it arrives in orbit around good old planet Earth. Can speed the game back up now. But they'll go in, sit in orbit, and while they're orbiting one of our planets with a space station, they cost less to upkeep. So as soon as they entered orbit, our power went up by 1 a month again. And they are healing because they are in orbit with our space dock.
Interstellar debris analyzed.
Alright, so we got deflectors, nanocomposite materials, so first level of shields, first level of armor, first progress towards afterburners, and some physics and engineering research points. So that doesn't hurt. That's actually probably a good place to end it for today, guys. So if you did like the video, please consider hitting that like button. If you'd like to join up with the 232, be part of our community, just hit that subscribe button and make sure to turn your notifications on so you never miss when a new video comes up. And remember guys, life is a game, so play to win, and until next time, take care.